I'm on Dartmoor. I've got a new tent to play with, the Enran2. Am I happy or what? I'm going to be talking about the latest addition to my tent stable. I've come to a wildest Dartmoor to pitch it up on the moor and tell you about it in full detail. This is the Enran2, beautifully light and compact. These are the poles that come with it. I took them out just to make it easier to pack in the rucksack. Of course, a bloke chucking a bag around on screen doesn't tell you really how heavy it is, but all you need to know is about a kilo with the factory pegs and poles set up. I don't think anyone would pretend that this is a mountain top in winter type tent. It's not a full season tent, it doesn't pretend to be. What it is though is a very light and very spacious tent for, if you like, slightly better weather. Kind of like this then. So the ground is not smooth and flat, it's not a putting green. That's going to make the job of getting an ideal pitch a bit more challenging, so please excuse me if the finished result isn't quite up to scratch, but I'll do my best. So this is, if you like, the quick and dirty stage of pitching a tent. Don't worry, we're going to fine-tune it quite a lot, but some things are quite clear already. First thing is the fabric is almost translucent. It's gorgeous 7 denier, so incredibly thin, like a finest silk. Okay, so it's looking a little bit better now. Put some more pegs in, tension things up, and generally been faffing about with it for a few minutes. But it's a fickle beast, this one, and it, especially on lumpy ground, needs a bit of tender loving care. The pole is off vertical, and the bottom of the fly is looped around the bottom of the pole, and that seems to be holding this end sort of mini vestibule of the tent nice and taut. I'm going to come back to that in a second. And then the guy line goes down from the pole to a peg. I'm going to come back to that in a second as well. This is the windward end of the tent, if you like, and that's taking the brunt of the weather. Now, I've had this for a few weeks now. I've been testing it and checking it out, but I brought it up onto Dartmoor to give it a really good going over on some rough ground and in a more real world setting. Let you know what I think about it. Is it as good as it's hyped up to be? Has it got some flaws? Now let's just talk about the conditions here on Dartmoor. It's bone dry. Not often you hear those words talked about in Dartmoor terms. Bone dry Dartmoor? Surely some mistake. But it is, it's been quite dry for a while. Always a problem with camping on around the tors on Dartmoor. It's a very rocky, bouldery ground, yeah? Look at that. So inevitably getting the pegs in can be a challenge. So you don't always have a choice for the perfect pitch, and that has certainly been a factor this time. I haven't got an anemometer with me because frankly I think they're so unreliable and vague that they're not really much use. The weather forecast says the wind speed is 15, gusting to 25. How can I put it in walker's terms? Wearing my hat earlier on the walk here, there was times when it felt like it was going to blow my hat or my cap off. You know that kind of strength of wind? It's like that. So this is the tent set up as it comes from the factory, using only the factory pegs, factory guy lines, and I haven't made any modifications or adjustments at all to it. This is what you get out of the box. The pegs that come with the tent are things of beauty. Most of them are this carbon fibre design, and they are incredibly lightweight. And for the two main guy lines at the end, we have these little titanium pegs that are slightly more chunky. It's not a bad view, is it? The tent pitched, and up above me, a beautiful view. For those of you into Dartmoor, that in the distance is Fir Tor. So the wind direction is coming this way, as you can no doubt tell by the way that the fly sheet's being blown around and it's being blown in. It's not actually touching the inner quite, but it's pretty damn close. And now what we're going to do is going to make use of these attachment points here and give it a bit of strength, extra strength on the windward side. Let me talk you through what I've done. So the guy lines at the end that go down from the top of the pole are quite short as they come from the factory, and so inevitably they go down at an angle of, I would say, about 60 degrees to the ground. The strength of the tent really depends on the tension between those two end poles holding the fabric tight. And so the tension from pole top to pole top, if that makes sense, is the main thing we need to get. And if the guy lines go down at 60 degrees, you're not getting a very efficient direction of pull, if you like. Those of you who've studied my Lanshan modifications videos will know this is a subject very close to my heart. So what have I done? A couple of things. I've extended the main guy line that comes from the top of the pole. I just looped a bit of extra Dyneema attached, and that goes down all the way to a peg. And now the total length of that guy line from pole to peg is about 2.5 meters ish. That also gives me a lot more choice when it comes to where to peg. You know, on rocky ground like this, it's a bit of a nightmare. So having a nice on line gives you lots more choice. And it now means that the direction of pull of that guy line is much better suited to getting good tension in the fly sheet. The other thing that I've done, predictably I suppose, is to use these attachment points at the side, and I've got a nice length of Dyneema. This started off as about 4 or 5 meters. It goes out, shares the same peg as the main guy line, and goes back to the loop on the other side. And I've got it being tensioned with a little line lock there. And so those combined means that this end of the tent is now looking much happier. There's sufficient separation between the inner and the outer, and it isn't flapping around very much, is it? I think any remaining creases or looseness is just an inevitable result of the unevenness of the ground and irregularities. It's not the tent's fault, it's Dartmoor's fault, and it's not my fault either. So I'm in the tent at last, and the sun's hitting the tent and it's gloriously warm in here. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is ventilation. Massive ventilation panel up in the roof of the inner, and there's ventilation at either end as well. So I'm going to open those up now just to get a bit of a through draft so I don't cook in here. This inner is long, low and wide. So height wise, I'm not on a mast at the moment. I'm a 5'9" on a good day if I'm standing up straight, and my head is just about clear of the inner in the middle. Down at the other ends it slopes down significantly. For me it's almost too long. There's acres of space in here, so from that point of view it's absolute luxury. The inner is fantastic, but there are a couple of things I'm not too sure about. Let me show you. You can see if I look down the bottom, there's not much of a bathtub on the fly sheet. So if we go and focus on the sort of end by the door, it's just 3 or 4 centimeters at best, I think you could say. So on squelchy wet ground, you wouldn't benefit from a very good bathtub effect on this ground sheet. The other sort of big elephant in the room, if you like, is the vestibule size, and the way I've got it pitched has been to optimize it, but that's about 30 centimeters maximum as it currently is looking. So a pretty bare minimum when it comes to if you wanted to cook in there, for sure, safely anyway. I've also made a little modification. I just can't help myself, can I? And now I noticed that there's these sort of labels on the inner. So what I've done is to attach with some Dyneema, very crudely, a little clip, like a little bulldog clip. I'll put the link in the video. And then I can pull that along this, the tent Dyneema that holds the poles together, and put it back to create more space. I've seen some people use tent pegs, if you like, to achieve the same thing. But this seemed to me just to be a slightly neater solution. And then when I finish cooking, I can just slide it back, or possibly even pull it out if I want more interior space, or to tension up the inner a bit. Unfortunately, there's only these labels on one side of the inner. This is the view showing you the separation between the inner and the outer, and the way that the inner is moving around. You can see there's a lot of slack, if you like, on the inner, and a massive amount of separation. I just had a moment, I realised, oh my gosh, I'm in my happy place. I'm on Dartmoor on a beautiful sunny day. I got a fantastic view off down in the distance. There's a nice fresh breeze, I've got a new tent to faff about with, and I've been pottering around, tweaking it, playing with little modifications, faffing about generally, which is my happy place, has to be said. So I just suddenly realised, oh my God, does it get any better than this? Am I the only one? I may well be. So I've now got the sleep pad inflated inside the tent so you can get a good understanding of the amount of space here. See down at the end there's about 30 centimetres free at that end, and this end's a bit difficult to tell because everything's blowing around a bit, but another 20 centimetres there, so loads of space end to end for the mat. And this is the large Light Tour R7.5 mat, my favourite. I don't think you could fit two of these side by side, but two mummy shaped ones definitely without any trouble at all. Please excuse all the clutter. I am in the process of sorting it out. Well, the wind is, if anything, picking up now actually, but I've carried on regardless, and what I've been playing with now is creating a bit of a porchway, or if you like, an enlarged cooking area. Those of you who know my Lanshan videos will recognise this pole. They're the ones that I use to lift up the side putouts on the Lanshan. It's carbon fibre. It's about 60 centimetres long, and I've got that underneath the corner of the door. So that's creating a much nicer, bigger porchway or sheltered area, if you like, for operating. So I think it's time I got in and made myself a brew. I love that feeling at the end of the day when you put up the shelter, get inside, and then you can just relax, get warm, comfortable, get some food. And the tent is fundamental to that. Do you feel safe, protected from the elements and all that kind of stuff? Is it going to stand up, last through the night? The biggest impression I have inside this tent is how well it is made. I can tell, put a lot of thought into this. A couple of examples: the way that the pole glides through the main sleeve that it goes in, absolutely beautiful action. And just the fact that the zips are waterproof zips. I think I've never had a tent with waterproof zips before. Elegant, good solution. Got a really warm evening this evening and the sun's still up. It's just hitting the side of the tent. It's really beautiful. So I'm just shading here, and this tent is coming into its own because of the amount of ventilation. I've got both doors open. I've got the end ventilation fully open, and it's delicious. It's fantastic. Any other tent I'd be absolutely cooking, but this is just right. Is there anything I don't like about it so far? Well, I've mentioned a couple of things already. I think the end guy lines are way too short. I think the main pegs that you're given for the end guy lines are not quite beefy enough, certainly for UK conditions. And I've been lucky in this weather. I've been able to open up the door to cook inside the vestibule, but it is going to be a bit of an art if you have to keep the door closed in bad weather. There is another thing about tents that I think we tend to overlook. I mean, we get hung up on the features and the design and the strengths and weaknesses and how much headroom there is and this kind of thing. But bottom line is that the tent, lightweight backpacking tents, they're just enablers, aren't they? It's what it lets you do that really counts. And this tent is light, and it's very well made and very neatly designed. So it means that I can come here with less effort, and it means that I can be confident and secure. Whatever the weather will be, I'm going to be safe, warm and dry. And that's really what it's about, isn't it? The sun's gradually sinking down beneath the hills in the distance as lovely evening shadows starting to lengthen. I wanted to just take this chance to talk about the design of this Enran2 tent. Don't worry, it won't take long. This takes an existing idea and really moves it up to the next level by using the walking poles at the end. This idea of the central hoop on a tent has been around since my first tent, which was a Saunders Spacebacker, and that was a revolutionary tent with a big flexible hoop, but that was all it had, and so it meant that the headroom at the end was very minimal. So what subsequent manufacturers have done to solve that is to add poles to give you a bit more headroom when you're sleeping, and lots of manufacturers have got a tent of that style in their range, and they all use basically small, short lightweight poles to add a little bit of height. Problem is, with a short pole, it does get that to some degree, but it's never going to be that good. And so what TFS tents have done is to basically utilize walking poles, which are much more commonly used these days. With a walking pole at the end of the tent, you get a lot more height than you would do with just a short 30 centimetre pole. The central hoop is a relatively short length, and so it sits quite low. So you've got a long and quite low sleeping area. The other one that I know of by 3FUL gear features a slightly higher hoop and slightly shorter footprint, so it's a bit shorter and higher inside, which would probably suit me okay. But I know that people who are taller really like the idea of a longer tent and struggle to find one that fits them. Shout out to Novice Wild Camper, I feel your pain. But for the rest of the population who are of a sensible size, then this is almost surplus space, to be quite honest with you. It was at that point I was disturbed by a military helicopter that flew up the valley beneath me before turning around and heading off again. Oh, it's starting to get a bit cool out here now, so I think it's time for me to head into the tent and settle down for the night. Right, so that's it for today. I'm going to turn in for the night now. A beautiful evening here on Dartmoor. Absolutely magical. Tent's doing perfectly so far. See you in the morning. Fast forward to the next morning. Beautiful morning woken up to. This is the spot where the tent was. Hopefully there's no trace that I've been there. So today what I'm doing is heading off over the moors. Going to tick off a few tours on the way. I'm staring at that thing up there, fir tor. I think it looks worse than it is. It looks higher than it really is. It looks higher than it really is. It looks higher than it is. Right, so this is the top of Fir Tor. It's a beautiful spot on a day like today. Very popular spot for wild camping actually, and I've just arrived to find a couple of people here with their tents set up already. Right, so I've spent a very, very pleasant day stomping around Dartmoor in glorious weather. It's late afternoon now, and so it's time for me to think about the second pitch of this trip, and I've come to a very distinctive Tor, very striking horizontal lines across the Tor, and this is Watton Tor. I think I've found a spot just here, so next thing to do is just get the tent up again, and let's see if this time it goes up any better than last time. The tent comes with these very funky carbon fibre pegs. When you pull on the Dyneema, the cap comes off the peg, and this is the second time this has happened to me. I thought the first one might have been just a fluke. Well, it's up and it's pitched, and it's a lot happier than it was last night for sure. It's gone up in a slightly more elegant way, so the right hand end as you're looking at it is pointing into the wind, and that is the end which I've fitted the sort of extra guidelines to, just like last night, just to give it extra bracing against the wind. I found last night, or rather this morning when I was packing up, that it was very difficult to extract the spike of the tent of the walking pole from this D-shaped metal ring. Very, very difficult. It kind of got jammed in overnight. So what I'm trying, experimenting with, if you like, this time is just putting this loop on tent through around the spike of the walking pole instead. The metal ring is still taking most of the load along the ridge of the tent, and the fabric is just holding it up, if you like. A bit more tweaking on the left hand end might be required. I think it's looking a bit better. I realised what it was causing the problem. I'd forgotten to put a peg in at the end of the pole to hold it in place, but now that that's been pulled into place and a peg put in, the whole tent's looking quite happy now. Yeah, that's not a bad place to spend an evening. Like I was saying last night, it's not just about the tent, is it? It's about the places it takes you and the views it lets you experience. Now I'm happily tired in the tent. I've just had my evening meal. I think this is as good a pitch spot as you're likely to find in the UK. Reasonably flat, reasonably level, reasonably short grass, so it's as good as it's going to get. I've done my very best to pitch this tent. I don't know if you can hear it. That's the fly sheet fabric still rustling and flapping around a bit. And no matter how you try and how many hours you spend fapping, and believe me, I have, it's impossible to stabilize the entire surface of the tent so there's no movement at all. Oh, and there's one thing I do really like, and that is the action of these zips on the end. They are incredibly free running, easy to move. Yes, you really are watching a video of a man moving a tent zip around. Right, so that's the end of another lovely day on Dartmoor. I'm all settled in now for the evening. Pleasantly tired, nice and warm. So good spot, and looking forward to a nice night. And apparently the weather tomorrow is going to be just as good as well. So for tonight, cheers, good night, and I'll see you in the morning. Actually, a quick update for you. About 10 p.m. now, nice and dark, nice and cozy in the tent. But the breeze outside is still quite fresh, and I don't know if this shows how much the tent is sort of moving around in the breeze, and the walls of the tent you can see sort of billowing in and out as the tent's sort of moving around. Now I've got the tent pitched quite tight, so I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, but it's quite a lot of movement. Good morning, this is the view from the tent. That's Enran2. And what a beautiful morning it's shaking up to be. Look at that blue sky. Now, a bit of rain in the night, slightly damp this morning, so there's condensation on the inner and outer surfaces of the fly sheet at the moment. That's inevitable. Any tent would experience that just because of the climatic conditions. So I've hooked open the inner and the outer to the proper places where there are hooks for them. But the design of the tent means that the condensation on the fly sheet, you might be able to see, is dripping off. And I now have a wet floor on my inner tent because the way that the fly sheet's hooked up means that it's dripping straight down onto the inner. So what I've done now is to just unhook the fly sheet from where it's supposed to be, apparently, and just use my favourite clothes peg to clip it up out of the way, and so it can't drip onto the inner. Now I've got a bit of a dilemma. I think if a review video like this is going to be of any value, it's got to be sort of warts and all. It's got to be absolutely honest. That's why I haven't just pitched this in my garden and done a walk around and said, look at this, isn't it lovely? It's sung its praises. I've come out to the wilds, to give it a proper test in real world British conditions. And also that's why I'm going to sort of be honest. Now there are some things I really love about this tent, and there are some things I'm not so sure about. Okay, so let's do the things that I'm not so sure about first, shall we? Let's get those out of the way. In no particular order. The pegs, those carbon pegs, they're wonderfully light, they're things of beauty, but unfortunately they're no good if the tops pull off them when you try to pull them out of the ground. That's happened now a few times, so a bit of a minus on the pegs front. I've got to mention the vestibule, or lack of. In bad weather, if it had been rainy or a bit more windy, I would have struggled. If you open the door to cook, there's absolutely no shelter from the weather because the door of the inner is so close to the door of the outer. And the way that the outer door hooks up means that you get water dripping into the inner from it. It's inevitable, so that needs a rethink, I think. I replaced the main guy line with one that was many times longer. I extended it to sort of 3 or 4 meters to get a much better direction of pull, and I also had to add an extra guy line on those lower loops, pointing with my thumb, to get better tension across the end of the tent, especially when it was breezy last night. Also, the other thing I just can't quite work out is how the pole spike of your walking pole is supposed to fit into the various points at the end of the tent. Spike of my pole got jammed in that metal D-ring and took quite a bit of effort to free, to be quite honest with you. So I tried using the loop last night, but it doesn't really sit well. It's a very how can I put this, congested area. I'm a averagely sized bloke, and I found that the tent was very long but just a little bit low for me, so I had enough headroom in the middle of the tent, but as you went towards the end it wasn't so much, so I would happily forsake a bit of the length for a little bit more height in the middle of the tent. So that's just my personal thing about the design. So those are the main things that I'm not so sure about with this tent. Shall we move on to things we do like? The tent is beautifully light, nudging a kilo. Takes up very little space in the rucksack. The quality of the fabric is gorgeous, it's lush. It's incredibly fine, incredibly smooth, and yet strong. It's brilliant stuff. Oh, I'll tell you another thing, the waterproof zips. Now, why don't all tents have those waterproof zips? I don't know, because they're wonderful. They move really freely. And I think I mentioned that the zips on the inner are beautifully free and have a lovely action on them, if there's such a thing as a beautiful zip action. Sounds a bit risky, doesn't it? I also really admire the quality of the construction of the tent. It's beautifully made, so respect to TFS tents for this. It's absolutely excellent. I can't fault it in any way. The quality of the manufacturer, the cut of the fabrics is superb. And I really like also the colour. For Dartmoor in spring, it blends beautifully into the countryside. So all in all then, Charles, I hear you say, what's the verdict? What do you think? When would I choose to use this tent in preference to any of the others that I've already got, which is far too many, according to some people in my family? I've been trying to film my closing thoughts about this tent for blooming ages now, and this must be about take number 12. And each time I do it, I seem to come up with a different opinion. So this is going to be the last one, and this is my final word on the subject of the TFS tents Enran2. Right, so is it a good tent? Yes. Is it a good tent for camping in the British Isles? Well, it depends, and let me expand on that one. So if you're going to be heading off into, I don't know, Scotland in February, then I don't think anyone would suggest that this is going to be a tent for those kind of conditions. I don't think it was designed for that kind of thing. If you're going to be heading out for some wild camping where you want to go ultralight, where the weather's going to be nice, dry, not too windy, then this would be a superb choice, especially if there's going to be two of you. The colours blend into the scenery very well. It's very spacious. It's extremely light, it's extremely well made using excellent materials, so it would be a great choice. I guess the problem is that in this part of the world there aren't many times when we can be confident that it's going to be dry, not too windy, benign weather for the duration of a camping trip, but especially if you're going to be doing like a multi-day through hike on a national trail or something like that. So the upshot is, it just depends what you want your tent for. If you want a year-round tent, then hand on heart, I wouldn't recommend this necessarily. If you want a lovely spacious tent for summer ultra lightweight camping, then this is certainly going to be a contender. Right, and that's my last word on the subject. That is it. Nothing more to say on the subject. I hope you've enjoyed this video, found it useful and honest and fair. I've really enjoyed this trip. It's been a wonderful few days in absolutely beautiful scenery. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you can, and I'll see you again next time.